Welcome everyone. I am going to present the topic of my PhD research, which is investigating the role of probiotics in shaping the human gut microbiome. My name is Éliás and I'm a dietitian for profession and working currently at the Faculty of Health Sciences at the Semmelweis University. My aim is to formulate evidence-based and applicable recommendations for the use of probiotics in several conditions. For that, my mission is to understand the role of the human gut microbiome in health and disease and the consequences of different treatments on the gut flora in the healthy and in the diseased population as well. Let me introduce my specific goals. First, I will investigate the efficacy of probiotic administration for antibiotic-associated dysbiosis. After that, I will investigate the effect of probiotic supplementation on the composition of gut microbiome in the general healthy population. Both studies will be systematic reviews and meta-analysis. So the topic of my first project is the investigation of the efficacy of probiotics for antibiotics-associated dysbiosis. Probiotic dietary supplements represent a $1 billion market, which is still expected to be growing. We know that people who receive antibiotic treatment receive 9 times more likely probiotic supplementation as well. However, we don't know the exact role of probiotics in the prevention of the so-called antibiotic-associated dysbiosis. So we know that the antibiotics have a major impact on the composition of the gut flora, and it is one of the key factors leading to the so-called low-diversity dysbiosis. And this state is associated with several diseases like acute diarrheal disease, inflammatory bowel diseases, liver disease, and even with colon cancer. So for that, my aim is to investigate the effect of probiotics for this antibiotic-associated dysbiosis. The clinical question of the study is, does the simultaneous probiotic supplementation during antibiotic therapy impact the post-antibiotic composition and diversity of the gut microbiome? We use the PICO framework, and according to our hypothesis, probiotic administration significantly influences the post-antibiotic diversity and composition of the microbiome. Here you can see the flowchart of the systematic search and selection process. We screened nearly 12,000 articles, and at the end, we included 15 articles in the systematic review and 4 of them in the meta-analysis part of the study. First, let me introduce the outcome of the meta-analysis shortly in details. So the Shannon Index is a widely used index in the ecological literature for describing diversity. It reflects of how diverse the species in a given community are. It rises with the number of species and the evenness of their abundance. If the index equals 0, it means that there is only one species in that given habitat. There is no upper limit for the index, and according to the current state of science, there are no clarified normal ranges or normal values for the Shannon diversity index of the microbiome. However, in the literature, for the definition of low diversity, the cutoff value ranges from 1.5 to 4. So we included 4 articles in the meta-analysis. All of them are randomized control trials. We have a low heterogeneity with 5%. And according to the studies, we can see that the mean difference on average between the experimental and the control group of the Shannon Index is 0.42, which is statistically significant. As we included only randomized control trials, we can assume that the baseline characteristics were the same. And moreover, we can observe a clear tendency that the longer the antibiotic therapy is, the greater loss in the diversity will occur. And however, the lower the diversity is, the greater effect probiotic supplementation can have on the microbiome and the diversity of the microbiome. And according to the grade, the results have a moderate certainty. Generally, there is a low risk of bias since we included only RCTs which used high-quality methods. The main strength of the study is that it represents the highest level of evidence as we only included RCTs and we used high-quality methods for the meta-analysis. And I would highlight that this is the first meta-analysis ever made in the topic which highlights the novelty of it. However, we have some limitation because we were only able to include low number of studies with low sample sizes, and we had to transform the data, and we were only able to meta-analyze one index of diversity, and this is maybe problematic because in the literature there are several ways to describe the diversity, and there are different types of measurement of that. So in conclusion, we can say that probiotics have an impact on restoring the gut microbial diversity during antibiotic therapy, and this effect is maybe influenced by the duration of treatment and by the overall loss of diversity. The clinical implication would be that probiotic supplementation can help to restore a more diverse microbiome during the antibiotic therapy, which is especially true in the long-lasting antibiotic treatment. And for the research, we strongly need standard units of measurement for further unified microbiome studies and clear cutoff values for the microbiome diversity index. And for that, we need to evaluate the correlation between the clinical manifestation and the microbial diversity indices. And let me introduce my second project, which is investigating the effect of probiotic supplementation on the composition of gut flora in the healthy population. As I mentioned earlier, the probiotic dietary supplements market is $1 billion one, which is growing continuously. And it is important to see that these products are marketed even toward healthy individuals without any medical reason. And their effect is not sufficiently summarized for this general healthy population. And since there is a knowledge gap in the guidelines as well, we need a clear recommendation for their use in the healthy population. The clinical question is, does probiotic supplementation alter the composition and diversity of the gut flora in the healthy population? According to our hypothesis, probiotic supplementation does not lead to a greater microbial diversity and does not permanently alter the composition of the gut flora in the generally healthy population. And the clinical and research implication will be an evidence-based recommendation on that. So I would like to finish my first project in May, and the second project is expected to be finished in July. Thank you for your kind attention, and let me close my presentation with the thoughts inspired by Shakespeare. So probiotic, to eat or not to eat, that is the question, and I am happy to answer any question that may arise. Thank you.
You have mentioned for the first project in your limitations that you had to transform the data. Could you expand a little bit on that?
Yes, actually it means that in the articles, they provided the data in box plots, so I had to use a specific program for that to get the data from the box plots. So, yes.
Right. Thank you. And the other question would be regarding the Shannon Index. So it was saying that if you have only one species, the score would be 1 or 0?
0, yes.
So I think there are lots of species in the human gut biome, so that would be like, we would expect it in the thousands, or in that kind of range to be the number, because then the mean difference was somewhere like 0.33. So would that mean that there isn't actually a big clinical difference, if you know what I mean?
Yes, yes, I think I understand. So yes, basically we don't see a Shannon diversity index with 0, I mean like never, in real world, but it would be 0 if there would be one species only. But the Shannon Index considers the number of species and the evenness of the reappearance, as I mentioned. So okay, I mentioned that there is no upper limit, but in the studies we can see that the Shannon Index of the microbiome is usually between like 1 and 10, so not more actually.
Thank you.
My question would be that in the articles, have they mentioned any clinical symptoms that are associated with the different microbiomes, and also do you plan to involve asking clinical questions about gut-related symptoms and other diseases?
Yes, thank you for your question. 2 of the studies mentioned diarrheal symptoms, and the probiotic supplementation was able to improve these symptoms, so the total length of diarrheal days would be then lower. But I must say that they only, so statistically they only investigated the correlation between the use of probiotics and the symptoms, and not the composition of the microbiome and the symptoms. So there is a difference in that. So that's why I mentioned that we really need to evaluate that aspect as well, that what is the clear connection between the composition and the other outcomes like gut symptoms. So yes, we don't really know that yet.
I have a question about the antibiotics and probiotic used in the trials. Did you take them into account? I might have missed that. Were they different antibiotics, antibiotic regimens? Were they the same or different? And were the probiotic used the same or different?
No, they were not the same. It is one other thing that is really hard when you want to explore the use of probiotics and the microbiome, that no, they didn't use the same strains and even not the same antibiotics. So yes, we should take it into consideration, but we could see that the results were significant. So maybe it doesn't have that much influence, but of course it will need further investigations.
I also wanted to ask that are there any differences between the probiotics, and they make sense or not?
Yes, then I already answered.
Yeah.
Okay.
You were, but it is certainly a good question, because it is also belongs to the limitations of the study that the different probiotics are used, and I didn't see it. It was mentioned under the limitations, so it should be mentioned over there. And then, is there any other question? Yes, go ahead.
Actually, if I may, I have a remark on your second project with the hypothesis. Because
yes.
The phrasing, the permanent alteration, that's a cyclical argument. Of course, nothing is going to have a permanent effect. What do you mean by permanence? You need to have a time frame. Because
yes.
Nothing ever stays the same permanently.
Yes, yes, of course. So it is under evaluation. So we need to clarify that question, but yes, we will have an exact time frame. So like in 1 month or I think it will be 1 month, because they usually use that time frame in microbiome studies, but we will decide on that.
For the first project, I've seen that you've said that for 4 articles, low heterogeneity. It's just because of the mathematical background should not be accepted. So therefore, low heterogeneity itself should not be accepted. It needs further studies.
Yes, of course. Yes, thank you.